let's get into it here. Starting off with Bitcoin, as always. I want to start off first with the big signal that we've been looking for to kind of come to fruition over the past few days here. Now starting to show its, or starting to rear its head. I'm going to turn down that volume over there. And that's going to be the daily on this chart. The daily signal, as we do see, is mostly based off of the daily BBWP, measuring volatility of the dispersion of returns. We have seen one of the lowest for longest reads basically recently, starting in late April to where we're at right now, looking like it is about to be resolved. Now, of course, this can still kind of stay down here for maybe a few more days, but ultimately this is designed mathematically to expand from here. And we have seen over the past couple of years here 10 relatively similar signals to this, of which I consider a relatively similar signal to this with daily volatility essentially in the single digit percentiles. You can see right here, we actually got down all the way below 1 percentile. So one of the lowest reads of all time, or sorry, not of all time, but that we've seen in the past couple of days here. So the resolution from this, the expansion phase from this, theoretically would likely be greater than, especially the ones that didn't get as far down as this one in particular. Anyways, I've gone ahead and I've measured out the past 10 iterations of this, not including the current one that we're in, and it has led to, on average, about a 20% move, to reference the title of this video, to the upside or the downside. Obviously, volatility is direction neutral, so we use a momentum oscillator to get a bit of a directional bias in this case. But as you can see over here, when I do backtest it, you'll very likely notice that on average it takes about let's say 7 to 14 days. I wouldn't say that there's actually a great rhyme or reason with that one, because some of them happen incredibly fast, some of them happen more around the 3-week mark, but typically speaking around about 20%. And because this one is a little bit lower than that in this case, it would be reasonable to suggest that, at least in my opinion, that this one's probably gonna be a little bit more on the top end of that average. Anyways, if you'll also notice as we go a little bit more deeply into the signal, the first leg of that volatility expansion was, or sorry, the direction of that volatility expansion was set on the first day of that volatility expansion. What I mean by that is that first uptick, like you see right here, like you see right here, like you see right here. You'll very likely notice, if you match that up with the green vertical bars, as you can see right here, that first drop down, well, that one got follow through alongside that volatility expansion all the way through. Of course, this one over here, more in what was it, middle of March, same thing over here, same thing over here, same thing over here, same thing over here, and so on and so forth. Not always. There are a few iterations way back on over here where it did actually go the opposite direction for 2 of them first, but for most of them, same direction. And I just want to call out the most recent one that we did see, that we identified in early April. This one happened right in front of our very faces, as did, well, all of the other ones, but this one, it's just more recent, so I think it's probably more recently in the minds of people who are especially tuning into the content of this channel. Well, we're seeing essentially the same thing right in over here. Takes a little bit of patience, obviously, but in this case, you can see that off of that first day right here, big move down, closing actually on new lows for this south side move. And so I do expect that this likely does get continuation to the downside. We can also take it one step further and apply a stochastic momentum oscillator, of which there's 2 major things to be aware of with this. First and foremost, the direction of the volatility expansion has been correct with the daily stochastic momentum oscillator on the first tick of that volatility expansion for 8 out of the past 10 times. I've actually measured, just drew it out over here basically. 2 of those times did not work out. They were actually back on over here and coming off of summer of 2021. But as you can see right here, the daily stochastic momentum is still angled towards the downside, remaining within the bearish control zone. So that, I would go as far to say that Bitcoin is, essentially very, very likely to see this volatility expansion to the downside, as long as this condition is met, which we've been marching down here for the past couple days. And this is now going to be 39,100. So that is to say, again, as long as Bitcoin's below that level, there is no talks of hopium, no talks of bear trap, no talks of any fucking bullshit short squeeze, which you can't fucking squeeze shorts in a downtrend anyways. You squeeze them in an uptrend. Obviously, it's probably shorts covering if you actually want the proper technical definition for that. Drives me fucking crazy when I see this across the web, but hey, that's probably my problem anyways. In this case, again, I want to be very, very deliberately clear. If you want just the sort of takeaway sentence, as long as Bitcoin's below 39,100, I do look for this to come to the downside. And technically speaking, if we were to apply, or if we were to apply a 20% move to the downside from this precipice right here on that volatility expansion, that puts Bitcoin down around about $32,000, $33,000 or so, basically the weekly lows, as we can see for the past, like year, actually, the past year essentially. So I would, I'd kind of be looking at that region. Obviously, it matches up with several other major macro things as well. If we go to this chart over here, which we will go into the short terms a little bit later, but But in this case right here, if you go to the bi-weekly, you will notice that the green 55 is coming in right around that region. Actually, a little bit higher than that, to be fair, but this is on a closing basis, of course. And same thing with the 3-week as well, naturally, as they are, rather similar timeframes. But you can kind of see structure coming in around that region if we do get continuation, obviously. Now, with that in mind, I think that there are a few things in the lower term timeframes that do make me consider that Bitcoin can very easily see a short-term bounce here. And hey, if that short-term bounce closes on a daily back above 39,100, then I would really consider the possibilities that we do see a bear trap coming in from this. But until that happens, it's not the forefront of what I'm essentially looking for. Now, if we want to take this one step further, I do want to talk about the next thing over here, of which I want to reference the 5-day time frame. We're not going to go over the volatility versus momentum chart, but we're going to go over CME, which closes the 5-day today. So the 5-day time frame for CME is closing today at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do believe. As of right now, it is a bearish engulfing dildo, which implies continuation to the downside, and we will also see the 5-day stochastic momentum turn to the downside for the first time basically since November, with any sort of a closure today below 40,400 for specifically CME. If that does happen, that'd be the next sort of, in my opinion, nail in the coffin for Bitcoin. Very, 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 very likely from a statistical standpoint, trading, down towards those regions in the coming weeks. With that in mind, should we get into the doomium here? No, I don't think that we're gonna have enough time for that. What I would like to get into, however, is the short-term timeframes, because in the short-term timeframes, Bitcoin can very easily bounce here. So what essentially is kind of playing into that right now? Well, first and foremost, we do see the lowest, or I wouldn't say the lowest, but one of the lowest among the lowest funding rates that we have seen on the hourly. So this is a very low-term time frame of negative 0.009%. So basically negative 0.01%, which is decent, to be fair. We do expect negative funding rates during downside trending movements, obviously, but in this case offers up the potential for a little bit of a short-term, short-term rally. And to top that one off, or to kind of combine that with the open interest over here on the Crown Trade application, we can go down to the hourly. We could see that a lot of this open interest, especially in the short term, which we are referencing on the hourly, obviously, is essentially, very, very likely shorts being added, pretty much around the lows of this move thus far. So does Bitcoin put in a little bit of a short-term rally here? Definitely possible, especially if we start to see lower term timeframe stochastic momentum oscillators turn around, of which we can go reference them right here. Let me just double check if CME and spot price action are on the same trigger right there. Yes, indeed they are. 4-hour stochastic momentum will actually continue with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's below 40,450. 6-hour will also be showing fresh downside momentum and volatility taking up as long as Bitcoin's below 40,000 bucks. Okay, so not the most pleasurable look right there. 3-hour also downside pressure below 39,400. Bi-hourly is going to be showing what? Is going to be showing upside, but a corrective signal with volatility likely going into a bit of a contraction phase right there, but will be up above about 38,100. And then the hourly, which actually I quite like as well for this. Hey, what's up, Burn Crumb? Good morning to you. Is showing upside pressure. Again, a bit of a corrective signal with volatility looking for a contraction phase as long as Bitcoin's above 37,800. So ultimately, can Bitcoin spend a little bit of time going sideways here? Maybe put in a bit of a short-term rally somewhere around 39,000 bucks. Definitely possible. If we do put if we do mark off the short-term time frame ranges and then put a fib on it, you will notice that the 382 is actually right around that number, about 38,900 to be exact, with the 0.5 at about 39,250. So those are kind of the two areas to be looking for. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to get a rally up there. I'm just saying that if you do see a continuation up around there, that's kind of that, these are areas where I would be expecting a short-term rejection before continuation to the downside, assuming that the daily trigger is not met, obviously. So that is to say that if we're even on short-term timeframes right here, so I kind of define short-term timeframes as 4-hour time frame and under, as long as Bitcoin is even closing the 4-hour dildo below the 0.5 retracement, which is 39,250, I do think that you could kind of front run that daily signal, being that if we do see a 4-hour closure above that level, then naturally short-term timeframe stochastic momentum will start to turn up on many timeframes, and we probably actually do put in a bit of a trap move. And if Bitcoin sees anywhere above even yesterday's high, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to put in a nice big rally, a big girthy green dildo rally towards, the $43,000 region. And that's where the long-term hopium starts to come into play. Of course, I stay with what I said yesterday that, hey, if Bitcoin does trade above last week's high, I would confirm this is a local low, also a higher low with targets upwards and onwards. I'd be looking for that volatility expansion to, very likely trade up somewhere north of 50,000 bucks. But for right now, again, the probabilities and statistics do suggest that the downside is significantly more likely. We kind of been repeating the same thing, especially ever since this area over here at about $44,500 to $45,000. And, I will be consistent with that until proven otherwise. Again, that's all that I care about in trading. I care about statistics and probabilities, nothing else. There is no predictions. There is no bullshit like that. There's only statistics, just raw and boring data for the most part. Anyways, other than that, I'll save the Doomium case for the monthly a little bit later. And for right now, we should talk about downside areas to potentially be looking for a bit of short-term bounce. Same one as before, basically. We hit the the upper end of that, being at about 37,500. I don't think that that's like a big basin area, but $37,000 very likely does beget a nice short-term bounce at minimum. Again, bounce can come up, somewhere around 38.5 to 39,000 bucks. But if Bitcoin does start to close even full hour dildos below about $37,000, I would be looking for, the majority of that volatility expansion target to be hit somewhere down around about $34,000 to $35,000 in this pocket right here before the next bounce. And then technically speaking, or historically speaking, that target based off of that data is still a little bit lower than that. And that's where I start to probably look for big weekly bounces. Until then, I think, until then, I hope that this information was in some way helpful. And yeah, there you go.